Everyone in the room laughed. Everyone except her. The sound was harsh, bouncing off the dojo walls like sharp blades. A dozen voices rising, mocking, cruel. The man in the white GI smirked, pointing at her with a cocky grin. "Come on then," he said, his voice dripping with arrogance. "Let's see what you've got." She stood frozen, mop still dripping onto the mats. Her sweatpants were old, stained with bleach, her hands trembling. Not from fear, but from something deeper, something buried for years. The room went silent after the laughter faded. Dozens of eyes fixed on her, waiting, amused. They expected a quick joke, a funny little show. They expected humiliation. But what they didn't expect was the truth. Because this woman, the one they dismissed every day as just the cleaning lady, was about to remind them what true strength looked like. Not strength that came from shiny belts or applause, but the kind forged in silence, in pain, and in the long years of surviving when the world wanted you broken. Her name was Rosa Martinez. She was 43 years old, a single mother, a survivor. For the past 5 years, she had been the janitor of the West Valley Martial Arts Academy. Most people didn't even know her name. To them, she was invisible. Just the woman who mopped up after their training, who carried the buckets, who smelled faintly of bleach. She arrived before dawn, left after sunset, and moved so quietly that the sound of her mop squeaking against the mats spoke louder than her voice. Nobody asked why her left hand was stiff, why she wore long sleeves even in the summer heat, or why she sometimes paused outside the practice rooms to watch. But Rosa had a past, one that nobody in that gym could have imagined. 20 years earlier, in Mexico, Rosa had been one of the country's brightest taekwondo stars. She was fast, disciplined, and fearless. She had a future so bright that Olympic scouts whispered her name. She could leap across a mat like her body was made of air, strike with the precision of lightning. People called her La Fiera, the wild one. But then came the man who would change everything. A charming coach, a man with a smile that promised the world and fists that delivered only pain. He became her husband, her trainer, her captor. Slowly, he broke her spirit as easily as he once sharpened her skills. Years passed in silence and bruises, until the day Rosa found enough courage to run. She escaped with her son, Daniel, a little boy with wide eyes who had already seen too much. They crossed into the United States with nothing but 2 backpacks and the memory of a dream that seemed dead. Life in America was not easy. Papers were hard to get. Work even harder. She scrubbed dishes in restaurants, cleaned houses, and eventually, she found the job at West Valley Martial Arts Academy. It didn't pay much, but being near martial arts again was like touching the ghost of her old self. She never told anyone who she was. She didn't want pity. She was too tired to explain. Instead, she stayed quiet. She cleaned the sweat off the mats. She washed uniforms forgotten in the locker room. And sometimes, late at night, when the dojo was empty, she moved her feet across the floor in silent patterns, her body remembering what her heart tried to forget. Daniel, now 16, begged to take lessons at the academy. And Rosa, though she barely had enough for rent, saved every single tip she earned so her boy could train. She never asked for a discount. She paid full price because her son deserved dignity. Daniel was a natural, strong, focused, kind. He was everything Rosa had once been, and more. That day, the dojo was crowded. Parents, instructors, and advanced students had gathered for a special demonstration. Rosa, as always, was in the background. She picked up water bottles, wiped smudges off mirrors, her mop leaning against the wall. Nobody paid her any attention. On the mat stood Jake, the star black belt. Tall, loud, cocky. A former state champion who loved the spotlight. He cracked jokes, showing off moves to impress the parents. He thrived on applause, on the attention of every camera pointed his way. Then, looking for one last laugh, his eyes landed on Rosa. Mop in hand, sweatpants faded. He grinned. "Hey, how about you?" he shouted. "Want to give it a try?" The room erupted in laughter. Some chuckled nervously. Others laughed outright. A few looked away, uncomfortable. and Rosa froze. Was she supposed to laugh too? Pretend she didn't hear? But something in her shifted. She set the mop carefully against the wall. Slowly, she rolled her sleeves, just enough for the faint scars on her wrists to catch the light. Then she stepped forward. A ripple went through the crowd. Snickers, gasps, whispers. Jake laughed nervously, raising his hands in mock defense. Okay, but go easy on me, he joked. Rosa didn't smile. She bowed. Perfect form. The head instructor, an elderly Korean grandmaster sitting in the corner, suddenly leaned forward. His sharp eyes caught something in the way Rosa stood. A memory. Presence. Jake swung lightly, expecting her to fumble, maybe stumble backward. But Rosa didn't. She moved like water. Smooth, fluid, effortless. She blocked the strike, her body flowing into perfect defense. The room hushed. Jake frowned. He struck again, harder this time. But Rosa was faster. She ducked, pivoted, and in one breathtaking motion, swept his legs from under him. The sound of his body hitting the mat echoed louder than all the laughter before. Gasps. Silence. Eyes wide. Jake blinked, stunned. Flat on his back, his ego bruised. Rosa extended her hand. Calm, steady, respectful. Jake took it, dazed. She pulled him up with quiet strength. And when he stood, he bowed, this time with real respect in his eyes. Someone whispered, "Who is she?" Another voice answered softly, "She's Daniel's mom." The silence broke into applause. Not polite clapping, not laughter, but deep, genuine applause. The kind that comes when you realize you've just witnessed something real. Something humbling. That night, Daniel hugged his mother tightly. "Why didn't you tell me?" he whispered. She kissed his forehead, smiled gently. "Because you didn't need to know who I was to become who you are." The next week, the academy offered Rosa a scholarship. Not just for Daniel, for her too. The grandmaster approached her with reverence. He bowed low and said, "It would be our honor to have you train again, Senora." At first, Rosa shook her head. She said she was too old, too tired, too broken. But Daniel looked at her with shining eyes. "Please, Mama," he whispered, "just once. For you." And so she did. Rosa untied the drawer where an old belt had been hidden for decades. Worn, faded, but full of history. She wrapped it around her waist, her fingers trembling. She stepped onto the mat, no longer just the cleaning lady, but Rosa Martinez, the fighter who had never truly left. She trained alongside her son at night. Her body ached, but her spirit soared. For the first time in 20 years, she felt alive again. And something began to change in the academy. Students who once ignored her now watched her with admiration. Parents whispered her story. Slowly, more people in the gym began sharing their own struggles. Loss, pain, battles fought in silence. Rosa had given them more than a show. She gave them courage. She reminded them that strength is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet. Sometimes it scrubs floors when no one is watching. Sometimes it waits decades, then rises when the moment calls. Rosa's story spread beyond the dojo walls. A reminder that every person, no matter their clothes, their job, their scars, carries a story worth hearing. And maybe, just maybe, the strongest fighters are not the ones who stand in the spotlight, but the ones who survive long enough to step back into it. If the story touched you even a little, please like this video, share it, and subscribe to Tales Binanya. We tell the stories of people the world forgets. People like Rosa, who remind us that strength comes in many forms. And if you believe in giving respect to those who are overlooked, comment below. I see you, Rosa, because the world needs more people willing to see.